In nature, there is a perfect balance to things. The golden ratio shows up in everything from seashells to sunflowers, and just how nature follows patterns and proportions, so should your finances. I'm Terrell Higgins, your real estate and personal finance guide, and in today's video, I'm going to be breaking down the 5 critical financial ratios that every adult should know. And they don't just look good on paper. They influence whether you can qualify for home loans, avoid lifestyle inflation, or even reach financial independence. We're going to break down each one, explain how to calculate them, and explain why they actually matter for your finances. Let's get into it. The first ratio is your consumer debt ratio. And this ratio is your non-mortgage monthly debt payments like credit cards, car loans, and personal loans compared to your net income, so your take-home income after taxes and deductions. And the goal here is to keep it less than 20%. The reason they use your net income and not your gross income, because it's trying to give a picture of how much financial strain you're under, how much of your disposable income each month is getting eaten up by consumer debt. But lenders don't like to use this consumer debt ratio because it's possible to manipulate your net income number. You can adjust your withholdings or change what tax deductions you're assuming and influence that net income. Where the gross income you cannot change, and that's the number that they use in some of the later ratios. Let's say your take home is $5,000 a month, and you spend $600 a month between credit card payments and your auto loans. So that's 600 divided by 5,000. That's 12%. So you're in the clear. But if that started to creep above 20%, then your financial advisor is going to start getting nervous. More importantly, you should start getting nervous because high consumer debt signals that your lifestyle might be outpacing your income. And that makes it very difficult to start building wealth. The next ratio is the housing ratio, and this one's sometimes called the front end ratio. So this is looking at your monthly housing costs. This is mortgage, taxes, insurance, HOA, compared to your gross monthly income. And lenders like to see this ratio under 28%. And the reason this matters is because housing is usually the largest expense in your monthly budget. So even on a large salary, if this ratio is way out of whack, you can feel like there's no money in your pocket. And when you're applying for a home loan, this housing ratio is the first ratio that lenders are going to look at. And if you can offset some of your housing costs by house hacking or having some additional income streams, that can actually boost this ratio and make it look more favorable to lenders. So let's talk about the big one, your total debt ratio. And this is sometimes called the back end ratio, but it's the total of all your monthly debts. This is housing, this is car loans, this is personal loans, student loans, credit cards, any debts that you might have compared to your gross monthly income. And the goal here is to keep this ratio less than 36%. And this ratio is huge when it comes to banks scrutinizing your finances. If you are pushing 40 to 50% on this back end ratio, then they view you as a high risk borrower. You're choking off the cash flow in your monthly budget, and you're one emergency away from potential financial disaster. Next up is the current ratio. And this ratio is a measure of the liquidity in your finances. So it's looking at your liquid assets like your checking account, savings account, or any readily available investments, and it's comparing it to your short-term liabilities, any monthly bills or monthly debt that you have to pay. And you want this ratio to be greater than 1. Ideally, much greater than 1. And this ratio isn't as flashy as your credit score, but it's just as important. This ratio is showing that you have enough cash on hand to cover your short-term liabilities without incurring more debt. So if you have $15,000 in assets and you have $5,000 worth of monthly bills, your current ratio is 3. You have enough wiggle room in your budget that you're not going to have to take on more debt if something comes up. But if this ratio is less than 1, that means that you're borrowing money each month to float your lifestyle. So you're living on borrowed money and borrowed time. That is not a good place to be. And finally, it's net investment assets to net worth. So this ratio isn't about qualifying for loans. It's about building real wealth. And you want this ratio greater than 50%. You want over 50% of your net worth in income producing assets or assets that are going to appreciate, not tied up in your personal home, car, or clothes. This ratio tells you if you're building wealth that's going to grow on its own, or if you're just earning and spending all of your money. If your net worth is $200,000 and $120,000 of it is in stock, investment properties, and other assets, then you're doing great. But if $150,000 of it is in your personal residence and the car you drive, you might be house rich and cash poor. So here's your financial cheat code. You want your consumer debt ratio to be less than 20%. You want your housing ratio to be less than 28%. You want your total debt ratio less than 36%. And you want your current ratio to be greater than 1, and the higher, the better. And for your investment assets to your net worth, you want that ratio to be well above 50%. And these aren't just numbers, they're the blueprint for long-term financial stability and freedom. So if you want to qualify for loans, build real wealth, these are the ratios that actually matter. And if today's video gave you a better picture of what you should be focused on in your finances, leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel, because I give no nonsense practical advice like this every single week. And if you're wondering what level of wealth you're currently sitting at, I actually did an entire video on the 7 levels of wealth. Keep getting 1% better every day, and I'll catch you in the next video.